We're going to be incorporating the use of a foam roller in this session. You might also want to have a block or extra cushions perhaps, as well as a band. Bring yourself to lay down. We are starting by laying on our back. Feel free to grab something to support the back of the head. You'll have your legs bent. Soles of the feet are on the floor. And as you come to lay down, just allow the body to settle naturally. There isn't a requirement to look to create any symmetry or particular waves of the spine to begin with. So head could be supported, arms are relaxed beside you. I definitely feel that you can gain from fidgeting around here. So whether it's that the shoulder blades are lifting and lowering to give you some length up through the upper spine, or the pelvis is lifting and lowering, just to bring your awareness to those landmarks. We're going to begin by moving the pelvis. You have this knowledge from previous sessions that the pelvis and the center of the pelvis is the curved structure, perfectly shaped for moving with ease on your flat surface. And also then really helpful in informing you as to whether there may be some slight bias as you're tipping towards and away from the ribs. We're wanting to utilize the range we have available to us. Of course, we're looking for that to be comfortable as well. So be aware of forcing your body into large ranges of movement initially. Stay relaxed. Certainly look at building up the tilting action with more repetitions. If you have noticed any bias whilst you're moving, see whether you can encourage some change. So if you feel that there is a little bit more weight perhaps on the left side of the sacrum as you're rocking towards and away from the ribs, see whether you can look to bring that motion more centrally. Perhaps you then get a sense that the lower back particularly is dropping straight down into the mat each time you rock towards the ribs, and then see whether you can navigate a similar sensation in reverse as you're taking the pelvis away from you. So we're looking at bias and then strategy, but all of that is really encouraged as opposed to forcing your body to move in that way. If we look to settle here now in the middle of our forward and back range, which might feel different to how you initially laid down. What does that feel like in terms of comfort? Always important to notice that. You're looking at some heavy landmarks now, not only from the position of the pelvis, but how that creates some waves up the body. So for you, what feels heavy following the rib cage moving upwards? Do you notice the lower ribs? Do you notice the shoulder blades, head? It's really picking up on that. And then looking to use those sensations, those extra points of contact, and starting to move the pelvis in a side to side direction. And here, as you may well be aware, you could put the hands on the front of the pelvis, which in turn gives you a little bit more information. So an extra bit of tactile feedback from your own hands just helps the system understand how it's moving today. Is there again a sense of balance, achieving a similar amount of range in that seesaw action? Notice how easily or how challenging it might be for you. And then see whether you can look in terms of staying relaxed and that the idea of unforced movement. We're going to settle the pelvis here, again, somewhere where it feels like it's roughly in the middle. So it's as if we have moved in that cross-like shape forward and back and side to side, and then found the very center of the cross and using that as a center point to refer back to. We are going to just explore the other variables in which the pelvis can move. So knowing that, again, the sacrum is curved top to bottom and side to side, sort of gives you a hint of what can be possible now as you begin to circle the pelvis around the center of your clock face. Often here, a larger movement just helps inform you a little more. You could still have your hands resting on the pelvis. Sometimes that can be helpful again. Otherwise, you can have your arms relaxed beside you. Notice as you're circling around here, and you're still moving to the points of the cross, but you're moving from point to point as opposed to returning back to the center. We're going to change direction here. So same action, same circling action, really skirting around the edges of the dial. Notice what else is impacted by this movement. So if you were standing and circling the pelvis below the lower back, what is the lower back doing in response? What are the ribs doing in response? Shoulder blades. Maybe you get a sense higher up the body as well. Maybe collarbones spring to mind for you. We're going to look to settle the pelvis just in the middle there again. So it's in the middle of the dial. How does that feel as a landed position? And then we're just going to head into some arm arcs. So if you can absorb the bottom of each wave of the spine, have the arms moving from the side of your body. And you're going to take the arms up towards the ceiling. There's length through the elbows to reach the arms upwards and backwards. And then bring the arms all the way back down beside you. So we're taking an up and an over move, but we're really aware of the waves. Again, notice whether this is an easy movement for you or whether it feels particularly challenging. So it might be that shoulder mobility is limited. That could be one of the reasons why it feels challenging, or maybe there's lots of flexibility in your shoulders that feels easy. Or it could be really that trying to look for sort of hints of the waves moving as the arms arc upwards and backwards. Maybe that's your challenge. See whether you can, in between each, just clock what is connecting. And then as you arc the arms, see whether you can maintain that. Sometimes breath patterns help out here. So it could be that as you're taking the arms upwards and backwards, a breath out helps you maintain some weight through the lower back ribs, shoulder blades, depending on what you notice in your own contact. Or maybe a breath in works fine for you as you arc the arms upwards and backwards. So you have some options. When you take the fingers past the ceiling point next, they're going to pause there. We're looking for vertical. Of course, it's a bit of an estimate. You can't see yourself side on, but See whether you can establish where the fingertips might be pausing above. And then we're going to come into open and close. More of a relaxed opening, chest wide, bringing the arms back to the ceiling. And all the while just checking in, as the pelvis now settles, does the body feel like this is its natural place for it to be in terms of points of contact with the ground? Just notice how you're feeling. We're not wanting to create tension through the torso, so wherever you might now be, does it feel at ease for you? I'm going to take one more of these, opening and closing, and then you're going to bring your arms down beside you. If you've had your head raised on a head cushion, feel free for it to stay there. What we're looking at doing now is moving into an action of the legs and maintaining the pelvis position. So we've just demonstrated moving the shoulders and looking to maintain the pelvis position, and of course the rest of the spine. Take your foam roller, bring it across the mat, just check in with the pelvis one last time, and then bring the arches of the feet onto the roller, and you can switch and change exactly where you finish after you've taken your first movement. You do want to be positioned high up the mat so that as we move into footwork here and you're applying a little bit of pressure downwards to send the roller away, the roller just about stays on your mat, and then you don't have to deal with that sort of lip up, little step up for the roller as it comes back. So you could take a moment here, quite nice just to lengthen through the heels. Be aware of dropping the kneecaps downwards. So legs are straight, yes, but we're looking to avoid any hyperextension. So maybe you could soften if you know that you have some flexibility there through the knees. Notice what you have. Are you able to be in those same points of contact? And then pushing down on the roller to bring it back underneath you. So we do a couple of movements quite similar to this in terms of what our aim is. Can we be still through the torso and move the legs? So things like dead bugs, things like bent knee opening, all of those have that as our overriding challenge. If this feels really manageable for you and you'd like to just ensure that you're not overly using your arms, you can take the arms up towards the ceiling. Again, an opportunity just to find what is a vertical arm for you. And then how do the hips feel today? How's their movement in and out? Of course, we're extending here and then coming into a flexed hip position. Training you to sit to stand, half squats, full squats. I'm going to take one more here, and then you can either leave the roller underneath your bent legs or you can move it over to the side, perhaps where it was when you started the session. Any head cushions you've been using, they can come away now. So you're finding your head meeting the floor along with the other waves. So the bottom of each wave, head is now in line with that. You can take a quick toes apart, heels into line. We're going to move into some bridging. So now we get to move out of this aligned position in terms of keeping those points of contact in connection with each other, because you stand into your feet, hover your pelvis, and you're going to tilt the ribs. So moving the spine into flexion, tilting the pelvis towards the ribs. Notice the ribs. The lower ribs will be peeling away. The mid and uppers are looking to stay dropped into the floor. As you breathe out, sigh to deflate, which will enable you to return as you land back to that wave setup, down to hover and tilt. Knees are reaching. Sigh to return. Often, just to double check that we're not overly using the arms to help here. Just to amplify the idea that this is about the feet and the legs supporting the pelvis lifting and that change through the spine. We're going to take one more of these down to come up and then tipping towards the rib cage, both feet. Exhaling to bring yourself all the way back down again. We're going to head into 2 or 3 dead bugs. Stand down into the left foot, right upper torso also just connects to the ground a little more. Float the right leg. Take a breath in here. Imagine the thigh bone here dropping, really dropping down into the floor. And then as you breathe out, bring the leg back down again. Relax, create a sense of balance once more. When you're ready to, stand into the left foot. Allow the right side of the upper body to make an extra connection with the floor. Could it be collarbone? Could it be shoulder blade? Is it the arm? Pausing here and really letting go here. So the hip socket is just going to relax. Be aware of grabbing through the front of the hip and then bring the leg back down again. It's almost as if, particularly as you hold there, it's almost as if the thigh bone itself sighs, just drops back, gets gently sucked, swallowed down into the mat. The next time you lift the leg with that down to precede the up, you're going to stand down into your foot, tilt your pelvis, reach your knee away from you, take a breath in, and as you breathe out, sigh to return. And all the while you have connected down into the floor and then really looked at the effort coming from the supporting leg. The thigh bone that's lifted can still have that sense of gently dropping back into the pelvis. Relative to the fact that the pelvis tilts, the thigh bone will feel like it draws toward you, but could it also feel like it's sort of heavy and dropping back there? 3 will do. We're going to do a similar move with some foam roller support at some point. Bring the leg down. Feel free to just take a check in there. We're prepping on the other side, foot to float. Inhale when we're here. Ease. And returning. Foot and upper body to float the leg. Inhaling, dropping back, and returning. The exhale can provide that sense of being heavy with your landmarks. It can create more of a grounded feel through the lower half and upper half of the body. As you drop down to float next, you're going to keep this leg raised. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, A little extra push down into the floor to tilt. Again, swallowing the thigh bone, deep fold through the front of the hip. And as you breathe out, pelvis returns back down again. Exhaling, stand, hover and tilt. Be aware of overly using the upper body, particularly the opposite side upper body, and see whether you can really be confident in this, and this alone is all that's required in creating that diagonal connection for you. And then relax the leg down. Well done. I'm going to head back to a little head cushion. We're going to do a little bit of a hamstring prep before we come into our shoulder bridge. And shoulder bridge will be supported today on the roller. So bringing the head onto a cushion yourself if you want to, taking the band to come around one of your feet. As wide as you can, so it covers quite a lot of surface area there, and then you're going to reach the leg long and away from you and bring the elbows down to the floor. So often, just to find and check in on the length, it's useful to start with both legs down. So push into the band to take the leg up and away from you. It needn't be to the ceiling. You just get to where you get to, finding that length. And then there's a softening of the joints of the leg that's raised, ankle, knee and hip. So the hip does move into a deeper flexed position. The knee isn't bending that much, just notice. Pay some attention to the ankle, the toes heading back towards the shin there. Just to look to start to lengthen through the Achilles a little bit more and create more of a dorsiflexed ankle joint. Notice how that feels. See whether you can maintain it with that resistance from the band as you send the leg away each time. And then we're just going to finish off by lowering the leg and kicking the leg up and down. So you're going to keep the elbows on the floor. As the leg goes down, the arms will come down. Reach into the band to kick the leg back up again. Elbows will stay on the floor, forearms will lower. Push into the band to kick the leg back up again. Down you come. You get to where you get to. Last one. Down you come. Reach and stand. Stand into the band, particularly if it's managed to keep its width, because then that's such an easy transition to make, and you've got lots more feedback coming into the foot. Lower the leg, just to ensure length through that side of the body, and then take the leg back up and away from you. We're heading into a prep for the hamstrings. So an opportunity to, of course, have that lengthened back leg when the leg is straight, and then really looking to lengthen through the Achilles and the back of the ankle joint, which in turn will help with length through the hamstrings as well. Breath can be easy. Doesn't have to be specific. Just be aware of your breathing in terms of breath holding. Last one with the knee bend, and then just coming into a handful of leg lowering down, reaching and lifting. Leg lowering down, reaching and lifting. Leg lowers, push and lift. And pause when you're up. So the band can come away. You're going to grab the foam roller once more. Slip your head cushions away. The roller is going to head underneath the knees first. So let's have a look at that in terms of organising. Head coming back onto the floor. And then just check that the roller is level. Fingertip touch perhaps. You're going to lift the pelvis as if you're coming into a bridge and move the roller so it's coming underneath the pelvis. See again whether you can find the sacrum, maybe slightly more towards the top of the sacrum. I'm purposely staying lifted here in the chest because I want to show you how then there's a little bit more weight coming in through the neck. Can you, once you're here, really look to sigh the upper body so you have more of that bridging flexed pattern here, as opposed to a traditional shoulder bridge where perhaps the chest would be a little bit more raised. So see whether you can be there. As I mentioned, the roller is offering us some support in this position. So as opposed to feeling lifted, could you feel like you're grounded and dropping onto the roller? There is certainly more of a tilt towards the rib cage happening down here. Hands could be either resting on the roller or, depending on how long the roller is, if you can reach and it feels quite central for you, you could also have your hands on the outside of the roller. But don't lose sight of this idea that we're looking to have sighed the front skin and just dropped it into the back of us. From here, stand into one of your legs. Connect with the opposite upper body, just as you did on the mat, and float your knee. Now, could you look to do that without changing the position of the pelvis? The leg that's extended now is going to reach up towards the ceiling. And as it lowers, you're going to flex your ankle, just as we did with those kicks. Reach long through the waist. See whether you can gauge it's meeting the opposite thigh bone. Point the foot and kick the leg back up to where it came from. It's going to move away from you as you reach long there. Be mindful of your big toes. So you're looking to stay parallel with this leg, and you're looking for the big toe that's down on the floor there to also stay connected. It would be easier to have some rotation outwards here, but see whether you can keep the big toes connected with each other. Last one. And lift. Bend your knee, bring the leg back down. Feel free to have the feet together once more, toes apart, heels into line, just to find that. And then, of course, we're preparing in the same way. Your foot pushes down. Just be aware of the upper body. Leg floats up. That thigh bone has dropped back. The pelvis is still very slightly tilting towards the ribs. Watch out for overarching through the lower back. We're still looking at being in a bridging position. Particularly our original bridging of the session, as opposed to extended through the spine. Extend the leg up towards the ceiling. How's that? Flex the ankle as the leg lowers. You could move the leg first if you wanted to, depending on how it felt through the back of the leg. And then you're going to point the foot and kick the leg back up again. So here, as the leg goes down, just watch out for the knee falling out to the sides. Keep the big toe connection. Roughly speaking, we don't want to come too low. So maybe you could just sort of connect with the opposite thigh bone, perhaps drop a little further, but just be aware of then what happens through the lower back as a result of that. As that leg is heading down into a little bit more extension, it's going to really challenge the body position entirely. To lift, and last one, lowering the leg back down there to lift the leg back up again, bending your knees. Roller can come out of the way and you can bring yourself onto your back, just so that you have an opportunity to notice there. We're going to come up to seated. For that, you could float the legs separately up. Feel free to roll onto your side and use that as your movement, and you can roll your body up to seated. Now for seated, if you didn't have a block, you could sit on the foam roller widthways across the mat. If you are coming onto a block, or maybe you've got some cushions instead, we're going to look at coming into our spine twist first. So finding a comfortable position in that we want a sense of ease through the spine in the long sit, which of course is challenging. Maybe for you, it would work a little more if the knees were slightly soft. So here you are. How are your sit bones? Maybe you're perched on your roller. Arms are going to head out to the sides. So let's treat this as a book openings movement and look to the hand. And then have the collarbones start to widen and the ribs swivel around the spine to bring you round. And then heading back to your starting position. So you're looking to the hand, collarbone is wide on that side, chest spreads. Your back ribs are coming round. Often that is helpful to think of as you're moving, as well as if the back ribs are coming round with me, so is the back arm. So the arm that can't be seen as you're moving is also playing a role. Looking, rotating, rib cage swiveling round here, bringing yourself back. Head is looking, collarbone is widening, we're rotating, and then we're back. Last one. And pausing there. Heading into seated chest lift, we're going to take this slightly raised again, and with the hands either behind the head, chest lift style, or you could have them in front of the forehead. So extra bend through the knees, really feeling the sit bones and the heel bones and their relationship with each other. As you breathe out, length first, of course, lower the gaze and start to send the back ribs back. It's as if you're coming up and over something, even though with your legs bent like this, the thighs feel like they're much closer. Be right on top of your sit bones as you're moving. And as you're inhaling, bring yourself back up to where you started. Breath out. Lowering the gaze. Sending the back ribs back. You can imagine the floors there. So the shoulder blades are hugging onto the ribs and you can still see your elbows. And then breathe in to bring yourself back up again. Breath out. Last one. From here, we're going to head into hinge and roll down. So bring yourself off any blocks and take hold of your band. It's going to come around both of your feet. And one of the keys here is increasing the amount of support gained from the band by holding very close to the feet. You're in a long sit. Feel free to have the knees slightly soft just to begin with. They won't be as bent as they were previously for that seated chest lift movement, but you might have a little bit of softness in them. Bring your awareness to your sit bones. Can you start to lean backwards, really looking to transfer some weight perhaps on the sit bones, but it's not a tilt towards the ribs here. Notice whether there is some movement through the spine for you. If your knees are slightly soft as you begin, see whether you can just allow them to drop towards the mat. So maybe you've got a little bit more connection with the floor there, leaving a little bit of weight behind each time. And then from here, we're going to take this into a roll down. We'll start with the hinge, opening through the front of the hips. And then you're looking to change your mind. So pelvis tilts, gaze starts to lower for you to bring yourself down onto your back. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, sigh. Back ribs will push back. We're going to stay curved here. So keep drawing the front ribs in. Allow the band to pull the arms and bring the shoulders around the ribs. Start to bend your knees. As you unravel, could you hinge forwards? Now, I'm pulling on the band only to keep the band in contact with the feet. There's no other reason why. So you might find that where you're holding the band, perhaps you don't need that. Or once you bring yourself upright, gaze is heading up towards the wall in front of you again as you hinge, and then you change your mind. Can you be mindful at that point of your initial pelvic tilt towards your ribs? How was it? Did you look to alter your strategy as you were tilting initially? And then breathing out, sending the back ribs into the floor, staying curved. Find your sit bones. Bend your knees, move towards the front of the sit bones. Lengthen through the body. Sometimes you need to move a little bit more upright to find that full length. That would be fine. Could this look like a continuous movement of its own? Particularly as you come from this curve to this lengthened position to this upright position, and continue. Be aware of your legs helping you out there. This is our last one. We will finish it off completely with the hinge forward. So stay rounded. Use your heels, hinge forward, and bring yourself all the way up to your starting position. We can take the band away now. If the block has been useful in the past for Mermaid for you, then you're going to grab the block. It's going to come underneath both sit bones. So it is right in the middle for you. Find the upright position. I'm going to look at coming into Mermaid here. Give yourself time to settle first. How is the back foot? Is it able to come in close? Remember that leg could be out and straight in front of you instead. You're going to lift your arm. The arm that belongs to the back leg, same side. Take a breath in when you're here, and as you breathe out, bring yourself upright. Find your center. Notice the change in both the shoulder blades, and take yourself over to the other side. So you're going to inhale from here. Keep the motion of the arms once more. Breathing out helps with side bending, hence why we're looking to find the inhale in the middle and use the breath out to take us over. Last one. Heading towards your back foot. So away from it to start if you can, and towards it to finish. And then you're switching your legs round. Again, once you're there, just give yourself a moment. Notice how that feels as a position, as a setup. Take a breath in. Breath out will take you over. Any tension you might feel, much of it will ease with the breath and, of course, the repetition of the movement. So do be aware of the breathing. Even if you're not sure exactly where it comes, it's definitely going to calm the nervous system and allow change to happen. Last one, heading upwards towards the back leg here. And then we're going to pause. Heading onto hands and knees for some mobility through the middle spine before we come to lay down on our front. We don't need any blocks for this. Bring yourself round. And find your hands and knees position. Sometimes if you're looking to find the connection of the pelvis and the ribs and the head here in this position, sometimes it is helpful to move the pelvis, because we know that the pelvis position determines how the rest of the spine is organizing itself. So if you just move towards and away, really mini cat and cow, in order that at some point we're going to recognize what feels like it's the middle of the dial, and how does everything else respond. And then you might want to come wider for the mobility, whereby you're allowing the sternum to fall and then lifting the sternum up between the shoulder blades. Collarbones widen as the sternum drops down. Last one. Just make sure that your curve is crossways across the back as opposed to head and tail. And then from there, we're going to head down onto our front. So bring your hands underneath the head. And walk your legs away from the pelvis if you feel like there may be a chance of you being short on one side. And then hovering the head, lengthening the crown away from the body, widening through the sternum and looking for the sternum to behave as if it's falling from that hands and knees position. Exhale to bring yourself back down again. Feel free to keep the forehead hovered, so you could just lengthen in between, widen, draw the blades towards each other, and then breathe out to come back. Head will stay down here. Pelvis grounds, one leg reaches away from you, and you've got your in of your single leg kick. Reach the leg long and rest it down. Pelvis grounds, leg hovers. We're alternating in, looking to use that ankle mobility gained from our hamstring prep. So toe heading back towards the shin as an option. If you feel that the pelvis is really jumping around there's a little bit of lift and lower, like it's been tugged slightly, you could take out the flexion of the ankle and move more into a pointed foot. See how that feels for you. And then we're going to add in the extension we did previously. So forehead hovering, lengthening to come up. Sternum again behaving like it's falling to the floor, and it's your choice. Do you want to be up a little higher? Do you want to stick with the flexed ankle? Or do you want to move to the pointed foot now? Let's notice how this is feeling. Last one. Body comes down just to relax and begin to open up the back of you. And then just bringing yourself into a child's pose, something that brings you round here, curved from head to tail. Spend as long as you need in your curved shape. Notice your sensations as you come there. Move into alternative curves depending on how much opening you feel you're gaining from being in that place. And then, of course, ultimately you're going to begin to unravel and bring yourself upright. If in the space in which you're in, you feel safe and secure enough to come into a reverse roll-up and unravel from here, then go ahead. If you'd rather take your step up, maybe you have something you could hold on to. If you don't, come to both knees. Ensure that the toes are curled under behind you, and come to a single leg position here, so one kneeling position. To bring yourself up from the floor, you're going to utilize the toes here as well as the weight of your head. So the head moves forward as you transfer to bring yourself all the way up to standing. Moving towards the back of your mat for some rolling down and rolling up. You'll lower the gaze as you take your breath out. You're drawing your front ribs in and sending your back ribs back. Softening the knees here as you come down. Stay relaxed, take a breath in. And as you breathe out, lifting through the back of the body to bring yourself all the way back up to your starting position. Lower the gaze. Sigh and relax. Head is heavy. Ease through the face and the mouth. Give through the back line completely. At the bottom, if you wanted to, feel free to bend your knees more in order to bring the hands down onto the mat initially. How much of the feet can you keep back here in contact with the floor? I'm just spreading my toes a little more there before I took weight onto them. Heels will go backwards and downwards. So I'm heading back. Breath out. To lower the gaze. To soften the knees. Hips are looking to be high here. Lower spine, sacrum high, knees slightly soft. And then a gradual moving of the hands away from the floor. It keeps you in that security place for a little bit longer, as opposed to bringing the hands off straight away. We are done. Well done, everyone. Take care.